In addressing the global challenges that we all face, the ISO 41000 series provides us with a framework within which facilities management can demonstrate themselves as the foremost contributor to a more productive, sustainable and livable built environment for all. And that is the big picture.
This is the Asset Champion Podcast, where we talk with facilities maintenance and asset management leaders about the industry trends, challenges, and technologies impacting your organization. This show is powered by Eptura, the global work tech company providing software solutions for people, workplaces, and assets to enable you to work your world. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's me, Mike P., in Australia. Wow, that's right. Today, I am in the Eptura Sydney, Australia office, just south of the beautiful Sydney Harbour area. I have views of both the Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Opera House outside my hotel window. It is an amazing experience, and I am thrilled to welcome to the show someone I have known for a very long time, but he is a first-time guest on one of my podcasts. He is a longtime contributor to the International Facility Management Association, the director of InTouch Advisory, a legend or a rock star in the world of facility management and asset management. So everyone, please say hello to Stephen Ballasty. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Mike, and thanks for that intro. I'm not dead yet.
Not legendary. Not legendary.
Don't memorialize me just yet.
But a rock star of the industry. Living legend. How about living legend?
I'll go with that.
All right. Stephen, it's an honor and a privilege to have you on the show. Our connection is mainly through IFMA. And we were trying to think about before we clicked record here, a decade ago, maybe more.
At least.
And it was at a World Workplace. And I believe you might be the first Australian I've ever met in real life. How about that?
I get that a bit, yes.
And I was so fascinated. You know, anybody who listens to this show knows that DJ Mike P. has always been enamored with Australia because of the music I grew up listening to, In Excess, Midnight Oil, AC/DC, all these great bands from down under. And that's what I first learned about Australia. But then just, you know, the dream was to come visit this incredible country, this continent. What did you call it? We're part of Oceanic?
Oceania is the region, but it also gets muddled up with APAC and Australasia.
So many
Not technically
names.
part of Southeast Asia, but yeah.
Yeah, we're not too far from Asia. That's what I'm learning. So our friends up in Hong Kong, like Graham Tier.
Yes.
Shout out to the former IFMA Board of Directors chair and past guest on this podcast. Graham and I had a great conversation not too long ago. My public school education in the U.S., a little bit to be desired there. I didn't quite get the geography lesson I hoped to. And now that I'm traveling more and seeing the world, I'm putting it all together. And we are almost directly southeast of what I would say is Asia.
The geographic reference I often use, Mike, when particularly talking to people from your part of the world, is they have no concept of the size of Australia. And so if you explain that your closest international destination, given that I don't really count New Zealand, they're just, you know, like too close.
You don't count the Kiwis?
No, they're like brothers in arms.
Yes.
So it's,
I put them together too.
Yeah, exactly.
I put them together.
So if you take New Zealand out of the equation, the closest international destination in real terms is Singapore, which is an 8-hour flight from where we're sitting at the moment.
How many hours?
8 hours.
8 hours.
To fly to Singapore.
Wow.
Now you put that, and that's actually our closest IFMA chapter in this part of the world.
Interesting.
So
okay.
that then gives people a sense of distance. But then the other important thing to remember is that time zone wise, yes, we're in the Asia Pacific time zone.
Right.
Very much so. So it's very easy for me to talk to any of our Asian colleagues, which is why when I joined the IFMA's Facility Management Consultant Council Board, I'm the regional director for Australasia and Southeast Asia because of time zone.
Yes, we are in the future, Stephen. We are living in the future here.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome to the future and welcome to Sydney.
Thank you very much. It is exciting to be here. And again, I'm thrilled to get to hear more of your story. First of all, the accent does give a level of gravitas to everything you say. So you may not know anything about facility management, but I have been fooled all these years. Now, seriously, you are well known for your consultative work and the service you've had on the board of directors and other communities of practice within IFMA. But tell me the story. How did you end up where you are today in the Cliff Notes version?
Well, to summarize all of that, I'm a sharer, and I had broad interests. So you put those two things together, and that sort of accounts for a lot of where we get to.
Very good.
But in terms of the FM volunteer leadership story, I suppose it started with that broader interest in things. So seeing the entirety of the whole of life, the built environment, those bigger issues back in the 90s. And so I gravitated towards FM, given that more of our built environment currently exists than is created in any given year, regardless of which market you're in. Understanding that my career started as a quantity surveyor, which is a construction cost consultant.
Oh, interesting.
So you end up having to know a little about a lot of different aspects because everything costs money.
Sure.
But I gravitated towards FM and saw the importance of it.
Very cool.
I joined the IFMA Foundation. Spent 7 years on the IFMA Foundation board, also chaired that. Only non-North American ever to chair the IFMA Foundation. I'm still proud of that achievement.
Wow.
I rolled then from the foundation onto IFMA's global board.
Excellent.
And here we are now. And as I said before, I'm now currently serving on the FMCC board.
Wonderful. And not to forget, recognized as an IFMA Fellow in 2018. Is that right?
Correct.
Along with another past guest of the show, you mentioned Paul Dougherty.
Paul Dougherty, yeah.
Yeah.
We are both class of 2018.
Well, you've passed the credential check, Stephen. You are certainly qualified to be a guest on the Asset Champion podcast, and I'm thrilled to have you. And I want to get your opinions on the state of the built environment today, the future of the FM profession, technology, influences, all those fun things. But before I go there, Stephen, my audience likes to get to know a little of the personality of my guests, and I find that out. I know it already. I know your personality based on our interactions at World Workplace, and it's always fun. But let's let the audience get to know a little bit about you. What do you do in your free time? Listen to music, read books, movies? What excites you, Stephen Ballasty?
I love a good movie.
All right.
And have a killer DVD collection, which of course my children make fun of.
Give me one of the classics that you would watch again and again for nostalgia, for inspiration.
Oh, there's so many, and it depends on mood. But recently I just watched Casablanca again.
Wow. Now you're talking a real classic.
Oh, yeah.
Humphrey Bogart?
Hey, it came to 4K. How could I resist?
Is that Lauren Bacall? Who's in that?
Yes, yeah, and Claude Rains.
And what's the classic line at the end of Casablanca?
Of all the lousy gin joints in all the world, she had to come into mine.
That's
in the middle of the movie.
That's it. Play it again, Sam.
Play it again, Sam. That's also in the middle of the movie.
Here's looking at you, kid. That's
yes.
the one that I'm thinking of.
Yes, that one.
And then at the end, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
That's the one, yeah.
So many classics. Awesome. I do like to inspire the audience with quotes. Do you have a favorite motivational quote you could share with my audience?
Well, again, because of that broad interest, there's sort of one for every occasion. But if I think in terms of being a professional consultant, in terms of the day job, I would have to come back to failure is not an option. Of course, the phrase that was...
Churchill?
No, it was made famous by Gene Kranz, the NASA Apollo flight director.
Ah, okay.
If you watch going back to the movies,
Apollo 13.
Failure is not an
option. Not an option.
Now, from a consultant to client point of view relationship, that's a mainstay quote.
I like that.
Now, if we turn that into broader FM terms, think in terms of sustainability. The quote works just as well. In sustainability terms, failure is not an option.
True. That's a big looming problem that does not have an easy solution.
There's no quick fixes. And that's where a lot of not only our industry, but society goes wrong on looking for the quick fix.
Isn't that true?
And if you go back to a quote like that, then you've really got to get it right.
Well, that's what we call in the radio biz a great segue, Stephen, into the topic of asset management and the big issues facing the built environment. Let's start with that. What do you, here in the middle of 2023, focus on with your consultancy, and what do you see as some of the trends and challenges that the industry is facing today?
Well, where we are today, I would say, sadly, cost reduction remains a key driver. Now, maybe it's perhaps my bias being a cost consultant that tends to be the question that people come to me with. Right. I'm prepared to accept that.
Your little bubble is full of questions around cost.
That's the first thing about seeking a solution, is you've got to recognize your bias.
Agreed.
So when I say sadly, cost reduction remains a key driver, that's coming from my perspective.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge it. But I think it is still a perennial problem. Whereas if I think of the work that I've done with the ISO Technical Committee 267, which is responsible for the 41,000 series of FM standards.
Right.
Now, we've been working on that since 2012, and we're now up to 51 participating countries.
Stan Mitchell and the gang.
Yes, Stan Mitchell and the gang. And it is a great team to be a part of. And that's one of the reasons why you do that, is to be able to work with really some of the greatest people in not just FM, but in business. That really does get you back for more. But in terms of, if we look at the ISO 41000 series and the work that's been done there by TC 267, we're looking at a broadening of the FM agenda and reaching that consensus internationally on not just what, I think there's again, the bias of looking for best practice. I think we need to understand good practice first. Mm-hmm. And there's not enough of that, in terms of people talk about benchmarking. But benchmarking tends to look at the extremes of the very best performance and the very worst. We lose a lot of the bell curve.
Interesting. In
modern benchmarking. So that's why we need to understand good practice before we start talking best practice. But then again, that's just a view that I have. But if we return to this issue of what are the trends, I think a lot of them are embodied and elevated through ISO standards. So, we've published 7 publications in the last few years, and we've got 5 more in the can, which we'll see out this year and next year. But the issues that we're covering for FM across as basic as vocabulary, having that common language is a great enabler to getting things done. But then we've done a lot of work on the fundamentals, sourcing agreements, policy and strategy development, organizational behaviors, emergency preparedness, digital technology, sustainability and resilience, and performance measurement. And perhaps most importantly, in this suite of international FM standards is 41001, our own management system standard, which allows FM organizations to be ISO certified.
Yes, and I've dabbled in this topic with Stan, and some other guests have brought it up over the years on the show. And my understanding was it was a lot of these standards were developed and really put out into the world just before the pandemic, 2018, 2019, or?
The Management System Standard, 41001, yes, was published in 2018.
Right.
And typically in the world of standards come up for review on a 5-year cycle. Okay. So there is a proposal up currently to review and update the Management System Standard.
So here we are 5-6 years later, and we've been through a lot these last several years. Have you seen a change in the way the standards are being accepted or viewed? What is your current perspective on the impact that ISO 41000 is having on the built environment today?
I think it is a case, Mike, of it is elevating the role of FM and recognizing that broader agenda of the built environment as being the place where we work, live, and play. It fundamentally underpins all of our activities. That's why the built environment is so important. But in terms of adoption, it is tough. it's slow, particularly in the light of the pandemic. Organisations are not looking to change or to add to what they see as an administrative burden. The fact that adopting standards is about documenting your organisation's practices and through the lens of that international consensus on good practice, and standards by their very nature are broad and they don't set the bar as high as it could be set. That really comes through your own organisational performance.
Okay.
So yeah, if you think of standards in being good practice, then organisations should be pursuing best practice to support their own organisational objectives.
Do the standards that you're describing help organizations achieve their goals related to ESG? That seems to be the big headline these days, that there is an elevation of the need to acknowledge ESG standards. Is there a tie-in at all?
Absolutely. The standards, as I just rattled off all of the broader areas and the topics, is a framework. And one of the ones which was slipped in there was sustainability and resilience, which is where you align with ESG principles.
Sure.
And currently I'm the project lead on 41019, which will be a technical report, and the proposed title is FM's Role in Sustainability, Resilience and Adaptability.
Wow. Okay.
Now, again, this is where you really get to elevate FM and to test and expand the agenda. If I take those three terms of sustainability, resilience and adaptability, and you were to visualize a curve, well, we've come through, excluding I'm not talking about COVID at the moment, we're talking about the other global challenges that are currently facing us.
Economic,
political, climate change. There's some big global challenges out there, and they all seem to be converging at once. And of course, if we take the built environment as being the framework from which society dwells and does everything, yet we have to maintain our ecosystem and our biodiversity and really provide for future generations. So coming back to those three terms, and you visualize yourself on a curve, and it's exponential. So we're down the lower end of the curve, moving towards the middle. Sustainability in FM terms has become standard stock and trade. Okay, so there is no one currently in FM who doesn't understand the need for sustainability in all its forms, and that is looking at productivity, sustainability, and livability. Affordability. Sure. All these are dimensions of it. So that is core business for FM, is sustainability. But as we now face the challenges which have been so well articulated through the IPCC reports on climate change, we're now moving into resilience in climate terms, as well as in business and economic, social and political. Organisations need to be more resilient, which means FM must respond to that. So we're currently in, if you like, the second wave of those three terms. We're in the resilience phase, and COVID has really been a testing ground for change. So we're seeing a lot of trends having the fast forward button hit on. So that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah.
But if you follow that curve upwards and out into the future, I believe that adaptability will become is the third wave. And so FM needs to prepare. And when I'm talking FM, I'm talking about the built environment,
sure,
the design, construction and operations.
Yeah.
We not only have to think in terms of sustainability being standard practice, resilience being the current response, but adaptability to think in terms of the multiple life cycles and functional uses of our future built environment and its ability to respond and adapt. These are the real challenges for FM. So 41019, which will be published by the end of this year.
Great. Okay.
Is a seminal piece in the 41,000 series in terms of providing context. Now, we're not trying to solve all the problems.
Right.
What we're giving the facility managers of the world, and our target is a 50-page document, So you can't cover all of this in 50 pages.
Right.
But you can certainly give the very busy facility managers of the world, who are getting even busier, a toolbox of how to deal with everything from climate change to the circular economy. And that's just one publication that we're currently working on. That's one of the 5 that are in the pipeline.
Wow. Well, I love that, Stephen, and I love the holistic picture you've painted of the built environment and the role the FM will play going forward. Any final thoughts, any final advice, something to inspire my audience? Where do we go from here? What should my listeners do to be an asset champion for their organization?
My advice to your listeners, without borrowing too heavily from Nike, because they've already used Just Do It,
right?
I would say 2 things. One is just do something.
Okay.
So don't wait for what others are doing. There is a lot of good work that can be done, not only in the sustainability, resilience, and adaptability. They're the big issues. But the idea of just do something is like benchmarking. Well, one can be critical of it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Right. Sure.
Because if we don't work out what the important data points are to gather, then you'll get down the track 20 years, oh, we should have been collecting that data.
Mm-hmm.
No, just collect some data. And then the second part of the messaging is look at integrated approaches. Don't think in terms of the silos. Don't think in terms of your part of the process. We need to think more holistically as being collectively responsible for managing the built environment. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
In addressing the global challenges that we all face, the ISO 41000 series provides us with a framework within which facilities management can demonstrate themselves as the foremost contributor to a more productive, sustainable, and livable built environment for all. And that is the big picture.
Amazing. Fantastic. Stephen, you are a rock star of the facility management and asset management world. Thank you for all you've shared today, and thank you for joining me here on the Asset Champion podcast.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for coming to Sydney to see me.
And there you have it, folks. Stephen Ballasty, the director at In Touch Advisory here in Sydney, Australia, sharing just a few of his experiences, insights, and a little inspiration for the facility management community. I hope you will share this conversation with a colleague or a friend, anyone who might like to join us as we continue on our journey to encourage and inspire you to be an asset champion. Peace out. You've been listening to the Asset Champion podcast, powered by Aptura, the epicenter of the future of work. For more about how we help organizations to engineer a thriving environment by enhancing their employee experience, workspaces, and asset value, please visit aptura.com.